Hi, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black Education. And some of you saw this week that there were some things going on in the school system that really disturbed a lot of people. You saw what happened with the school resource officer in South Carolina. But then there are other incidents that have occurred that have left people really concerned about just kind of what's happening with kids in the public school system. And so I wanted to bring to you Miss Candace Tolbert. Now, Candace, she lives in Glendale, Ohio, and her son Denzel had a really interesting experience where he was, from what I understand, suspended for staring at another student and making
Yeah,
the student feel uncomfortable. So, first, before I begin, I want to ask Ms. Tolbert, or I want to say, how are you today?
doing good. Doing real good.
Good, good. Thank you for coming and sharing your story. I appreciate that. Now, tell me, this sounds kind of crazy. So what happened with your son in school?
Well, what happened was on a Monday morning at break time, it was about 9:45. My son was standing talking to two other students in the class. Um, this girl comes over and joins the conversation. She starts talking to him, and he starts staring at her while she's talking. She starts giggling, backing away. He took a step towards her, just staring at her because she's laughing and giggling. She steps back, he steps forward. They do this for maybe about 5 to 6 seconds. She bumps into a table, she giggles and tells him to stop. Now, at that point, another boy decides to do it. He saw them doing it, he thought they were having fun. He decides to do the same thing. I can't speak of what happened with him because I really don't know. I wasn't in the room. There's no court testimony of anything that happened beyond that point when my son stopped. On Tuesday morning, the school received an email. Now, I was always told that the parent wrote the email saying that her daughter was afraid of my son and the other boy, that they were fearful, that they cornered her in a closet. That was the story that I was told. Two teachers took my son and the other boy into a room, told them what they had done, and asked them why they did it. My son said he started crying and he wanted to know, what are you talking about? Because she was laughing, she was playing. I didn't corner her in a closet. At that point in time, they threw the policy book at him, made him read out loud the policy on suspensions, ordered him to apologize to this girl by the end of the day. So him and the other boy decided instead of talking to her, they would actually write her an apology letter. So that's what they did. I never received a phone call. I never received any notification about this email, nothing that was going on at the school. On Wednesday, when the principal came back to school, I guess she was out. She took my son into the room. She took all three children. All three children had the same story that she laughed, she giggled. When she said stop, he stopped. Um, told them they were going to go back to told them to go back to class because there's a possibility that they would be suspended. But she wasn't sure at this point. At that point, my son wrote the apology letter that you see floating around on the internet. He began the letter by saying, I'm sorry for intimidating this girl. Those were the words that the teacher gave him. Later in the letter, he basically says, I thought she was playing, she was laughing. I got a call from the school about 2 o'clock when school was about to let out, being informed of the incident and told that my son was being suspended for a day and could not come to school the next day. So that's basically in a nutshell the whole incident of what happened. When I received the phone call, it just didn't jive with me as to why she was suspending him. I couldn't find a basis for a suspension because to me, a suspension is a pretty harsh punishment, and I didn't find basis for it.
Okay, so all this happened at the St. Gabriel Consolidated School. I want people to know that, out of Glendale. Okay, so did they never actually gave a formal reason? They just said he's suspended, or what
The
was the
reason
reasoning?
they gave for intimidating behavior, for bullying and intimidating behavior.
Okay,
And so my argument to that was, well, how did he know he was doing it when she was engaged? She was laughing, she was giggling. And I asked to see at that point in time, could I see the note that came in from the parent? I wanted to see what the complaint was. I was not able to see that. I was told that was private, even though they claimed that my son was accused on there. I did not find out until the court proceedings as we were going to court that my son's name was not even on the email. She listed two other boys, and my son's name was not on the email as her daughter being fearful.
Really? Okay. This incident happens. Somebody wrote a letter. Her parents. You said one of her parents
Right.
wrote a letter, and Denzel gets suspended for a day, and they don't. And they didn't mention his name in the actual letter.
No. So she went home. She told her mother about the incident, said she was fearful, but she named two boys, but my son was not named
Hmm.
in the
So,
email.
so did you talk to the school about this?
Well, we didn't find this out until we were going through all of our court hearings and proceedings and depositions and stuff like that. So at that point in time, when I found out that information, it was in the hands of the attorney to deal with that.
So a lot of people have seen the headline that says that he was suspended for staring. And so where did the staring come into play? Was that the intimidating behavior that people have
Correct.
alleged? Or really?
Yes.
Okay.
So that was behavior when he stared at her and she was laughing and giggling. So my question to the principal was, did he make any motions of evil? Did he threaten her while he was doing it? She said, no, he just stared. My question was, as far as her, did she ever say, stop, you're scaring me, leave me alone, get away from me? None of that. She giggled. So
Mm,
there was an engagement there. They were playing a game and he thought they were good with it. I think the problem may have come in when the other boy began to do it. She didn't like that attention.
interesting. Okay. So so nobody was hit or grabbed or beaten or attacked or anything. It was just staring.
Just staring.
Okay. Um, well, a lot of people are going to see this. They're going to see that that your son, a young black male, was dealing with a young white female. So they're going to see some sort of racial connotation here. But without, I don't want to presume that. I would like to ask you, as his mother, do you feel that race played any part in kind of how the situation was dealt with?
Unfortunately, I'm not saying race because I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was race, if it was gender because you have a boy and a girl. I don't know if it was religion because my son is not Catholic. So I can't really find a foundation or a basis as to why this really happened. But I know that when you look at the incident, later on that same week, that girl poured milk aggressively on someone else's lunch in the middle of the lunchroom.
Mm,
So you have an act of perception with my son that they say continue to intimidate this girl in a room with children in the room. No one saw it. No teacher saw it. It's a perception, a perceived incident, and he's being suspended for it. Here you have another act of aggression, physical aggression. She's pouring milk on someone else's lunch in front of all the lunchroom kids, in front of teachers, and the only thing they did to her was take her to the office and have a talk with her.
mm.
So I do have a problem with the issuance of how the discretion of how the policies of the school are being administered. I do not feel that what my son did, engaged in a game with a girl that's laughing, warranted a suspension on his academic record.
And what is interesting about this is the part where you mentioned that there were no witnesses to this. That there's no, you said the only people that know anything were the people that were there, those three,
Absolutely.
and that's it. And so it's all sort of on her word. I felt intimidated or I felt afraid, and so next thing you know, he's suspended because she felt afraid, right?
Right. So it's perceived as far as what she felt. Exactly. What
Hmm.
they perceived her feelings to be. And and again, even in the court testimony from the principal, Nicole Brainerd, in her testimony, she said all three kids had the same account. Their stories all lined up. So I didn't understand why, they were being suspended for this.
Interesting. Okay, so um, how's your son taking all this? How does he feel about what happened?
Well, he initially he was stunned. He couldn't believe that he was being suspended for staring, and that was the first thing he did when he walked home from school that day. I hadn't made it home yet, but he told his brothers I was suspended for staring. So it was a shock there for him. And after talking to him and investigating, I told him, you really didn't do anything wrong. There's nothing for you to be ashamed of. And you really didn't have to be sorry for what you did because if you thought you were engaged in a game with her and she was laughing and giggling, then you have no reason to be sorry.
Well,
This girl continued to try to talk to him in class. And, one of the teachers who was there for the suspension was also there for the due process hearing, put them together on the same gym team a couple of days later. So, why would you do that if the school really believed that she was intimidated and fearful. They never took any steps to separate them out of class. And then here you're going to put them together, force interaction, because they didn't pick each other to be on the same gym team. They were assigned to be on the same gym team. So what was the school doing at that point? Were they trying to provoke another incident? I'm not sure.
Hmm. Well, it's interesting. A lot of people would also ask you this. Now that the suspension's over, and the he's done the day and it's done. Some people might ask, well, why not just move forward? Just put it behind you. Why are you still fighting over a suspension that already occurred? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it's the principle of the matter. And as a young black male, having an academic scar on his record will follow him. Now, people say it won't, but he's going to the eighth grade. This is his last year at St. Gabriel Consolidated. That means he's got to be applying for to go to a school somewhere else next year. One of the questions on the applications, they want to know, is there any suspensions on this child's record? And if it was, what was it for? So now you have a black male coming into the school with bullying and intimidating behavior. He's being mislabeled in the system. And he's also, if they accept him, and that's if they accept him, then he'll be considered a high risk student. And that's unwarranted, that's unmerited, and it's unfair. And so, a lot of our fight, a big part of our fight, is principle of the matter. He should not have been suspended, and he should not have that on his record, regardless of what the next school thinks.
So this is my last question for you, Ms. Tolbert. As you're approaching the school and you're talking to them about this, and you've got representation and support on your behalf, I know I support you. This seems crazy to me. How has the school responded? Have they paid attention to your demands, your issues? Have they tried to explain themselves a little better, or what are they doing right now?
Unfortunately, from day one, when I questioned the suspension, from Nicole Brandon to the pastors of the church, all the way up to the superintendent of the archdiocese, they refuse to acknowledge. They have not contacted me, and I'm open for contact. I'm open to sit down and discuss it. The only investigation that they did was to call the principal. So, what type of investigation is that? If you don't sit down, you don't call the mother who wrote the email, you don't sit down and talk to the children, you don't even talk to the parents that are involved. So, all along is basically they've taken this stand that they're going to stand behind this principle with no investigation. So, I can tell you now, it has prompted and my husband and I to now be advocates for children, because how many other children out there are being mislabeled in the system, but they don't have anyone to fight for them? My son does. you know, Thankfully that we have the resources available to take it to court. But how many other parents do not have that same privilege and opportunity? So how many other children are being mislabeled in the system, and you have no one that's going to oversee their actions? So if they're biased, if they're racist, if they have any type of stereotypes, when your child walks in and they want to issue out any type of unmerited or harsh discipline, who's there looking over their shoulder saying that's not right?
Mm. Did you
So
see?
go ahead.
I was going to ask you. Did you see the video this week of the young lady who was slammed and dragged in the classroom?
I
And
did.
what's interesting when you talk about parental support and representation, it turns out that this young lady was an orphan.
Hmm.
Whose mother and grandmother I think had died this year, if I'm not mistaken, and it does make you think about that. I mean, what if Denzel didn't have this kind of support and advocacy, or somebody to tell him, it's okay, son, you didn't do anything wrong.
Hmm.
He might. I know for myself when I used to get in trouble in school for the smallest things, things that the white kids didn't seem to get in trouble for. It's
Hmm.
hard to understand that, and so you can end up when you're mislabeled by a system, you can end up mislabeling yourself. When you get defined as a troublemaker, you say, well, I might as well just make some trouble, and it shapes how boys see themselves. So I think that what you're doing is heroic and powerful, and it's helping a lot of people. And I support you 100%. I'll let you get the last word. What are the next steps in this, in terms of moving forward?
Well, thank you for that. And we are, like I said, we are looking into how we can help another child. How can we prevent this? And that's a part of what we're doing this interview for, is to bring awareness to the issue, to keep it out there. And look at this. Let's look at what's happening to our children, because, like you said, it's critical. Because you can take a good child and turn them bad because nobody's advocating for them. They're screaming they didn't do it. It's unfair, but it's happening to our children. The school to prison pipeline is a real thing. We understand that. But who's out there advocating? Who's out there stopping? And who's out there looking over their shoulder? So what we have set up is a GoFundMe page. We do have that set up if anybody want to help support us, and to be assured that this fight is not just for my son, but it's for your son, it's for your nephew, it's for your grandchildren as well as mine. That somebody has to look and put something in place. I know people say we don't need more laws, we don't need more regulations, but when we talk about the future of our children, something has to be done in the school system. If we don't give them a good academic foundation, where they're going to go from here? So I appreciate this opportunity today to be able to just share this with you. I thank you for your support and all those that are online and following the story, and to continue to follow the story and support it.
All right. Well, I definitely will follow this. And let me ask you this. So the GoFundMe page, do you happen to know the URL off the top of your head? If you don't, I can get it and put it in the article.
It is. It's GoFundMe/Super Seeds, SEEDS.
Wait, so Super Seeds.
Super Seeds, SEEDS.
Okay. Super Seeds. Ah, okay. All right. Perfect. I'll write that down. I'll make sure I put the link in here so people can support you. I want to say thank you so much, Mrs. Tolbert. I truly appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
You too. All right, everybody. This is Mrs. Candace Tolbert. Her son Denzel attends the St. Gabriel Consolidated School in Glendale, Ohio, where apparently little black boys can be suspended for staring. So the way I'm staring at you, maybe that makes me a bad person, scary person, or intimidating. I have no idea. But you know what? It's time to be intimidating because we're not going to let people do this to our kids. So everybody, thank you so much for watching. I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black Education. Until we meet again, please stay strong, be blessed, and be educated. We are gone. Peace.